The moment my grandpa looked at me with wide startled eyes and said, "Why did you take an Uber? Where is the SUV?" We gave you my entire body locked in place because the truth behind his question was heavier than anything I had carried all year. I stood there on the driveway holding my small backpack while the Uber driver pulled away, and my grandpa's confusion slowly turned into something sharper, something almost fearful. My parents, who had stepped outside behind him, stopped breathing. The second they heard his words, their faces went pale and stiff, like they already knew what was coming and were terrified. I might finally say it out loud. My grandpa walked closer, placing a warm, shaking hand on my shoulder, and said, "Chloe, sweetheart, did someone take it? Did something happen to the car you loved? That SUV was supposed to make your life easier." My mother cut in quickly, her voice tight and nervous. "Dad, she didn't need the car. Chloe insisted on doing things her own way." Grandpa frowned and said, "That can't be true. Chloe always took care of that SUV better than anyone. Why would she Uber here?" Then Arya, my cousin, who always loved drama, crossed her arms and smirked. Clearly enjoying the building tension, she said, "Maybe Chloe couldn't handle the responsibility. Maybe she sold it. Maybe she wrecked it. We all know she's not exactly gifted with choices." I felt something inside me twist, but I stayed calm because I had spent months preparing for this moment, preparing for the truth that would unravel everything they had done. My father said firmly, "Chloe, don't start this now. Grandpa doesn't need stress. Tell him you're fine. Tell him everything is fine." But everything was not fine, and this was the moment they would finally learn that I knew the truth. I took a slow breath, looked at my grandpa, and said, "The SUV was never mine. The papers were switched without my consent. Everyone here knew it, except you." Grandpa's head snapped toward my parents so fast I heard the sharp inhale he let out. My mom whispered, "Chloe, stop right now." My dad stepped forward, trying to block me from speaking, but I moved around him, standing tall in front of the man who loved me more than anyone ever had. I said clearly, "The SUV you gifted me was secretly transferred to someone else with my name erased from the title." My grandpa's face broke confusion, turning into betrayal, and he whispered, "Who did that? Who took it from you?" The silence that followed was suffocating. I watched my parents' stomach drop and their eyes dart around like trapped animals because they knew I was ready to reveal everything. This was the beginning, and none of them were prepared for what came next. Grandpa stumbled back a step, clutching the porch railing like he needed something solid to hold on to. My mom rushed toward him, saying, "Dad, please sit down. You're misunderstanding. Chloe is twisting things." My father nodded quickly, adding, "She's emotional. She didn't lose anything. We just made a small adjustment. It wasn't serious." Grandpa lifted his hand, stopping both of them, and said, "Don't talk. I want to hear it from her." Only his voice was low, steady, and full of authority, the kind that made everyone fall silent. He turned to me with eyes now filled with worry and demanded, "Chloe, tell me exactly what happened." I swallowed hard because speaking it aloud felt like reopening a wound, but I owed him the truth. I said, "After you gave me the SUV, I kept it clean, maintained it, and used it to get to work and interviews like you wanted. Then Mom and Dad told me they needed it for a few days for paperwork, but they never returned it. Instead, they transferred the car to one of Dad's business partners and told me to keep quiet." Grandpa's lips parted slowly in shock. His voice cracked when he asked, Why would they take something meant for you?" My mother stepped in, shaking her head. "We did it for her benefit, Dad. The partner offered job security for Chloe. The car was part of the agreement." I felt my chest burn hearing her lie so easily. I said, "That's not what happened. They took the SUV to cover one of Dad's debts. I never saw the car again." Grandpa turned sharply to my father, his voice trembling. "You sold her gift." My father's face tightened, but he kept forcing a smile, saying, "Dad, you're blowing this out of proportion. Chloe wasn't using the car much anyway." Arya, who had been quiet until then, let out a soft laugh, saying, "Maybe Grandpa shouldn't give her such expensive things if she can't handle it." Something inside me snapped. I stepped forward and said, "Arya, you used my car more than I did. You begged for it every weekend, and you knew it was never returned to me." Grandpa's jaw clenched slowly as he took in every detail. His disappointment filled the air like a storm gathering above us. My father attempted to reach for Grandpa's shoulder, but Grandpa moved away, saying, "Don't touch me, not now, not after this, Chloe. Why didn't you tell me earlier?" I looked down at my hands, forcing myself not to crumble, and sad because I knew they'd turn it around and make me look ungrateful, and because I didn't want you to think your gift caused problems. Grandpa shook his head pain flooding his expression. No, Chloe, the only people causing problems are the ones who betrayed you. My parents stiffened at the word betrayed. He faced them directly, his voice cold enough to freeze the air. We are not done with this. I want every detail, every document, every paper, and if I find out you lied to me about a single thing, you'll regret it deeply. My father's face went gray, my mother grabbed his arm in panic, and I realized something powerful for the first time. In years I wasn't standing alone, Grandpa was with me fully and completely. And this was just the beginning. Grandpa stepped into the house with slow, controlled movements, the kind that warned everyone he was beyond angry. My mother reached out to stop him, but he lifted his hand, stopping her without even looking back. His voice carried through the doorway, saying, "I need to think, and none of you follow me." The door closed with a soft thud, but the silence that followed was sharp enough to cut through bone. I stood on the porch, feeling like my heartbeat had moved into my throat. My father rubbed his forehead, muttering, "Chloe, why did you have to bring this up now? Your grandpa always overreacts." Arya folded her arms and said with a smirk, "Maybe if you had just kept the whole car thing quiet, none of this would have happened. You always make everything dramatic, Chloe, always." I stared at her, letting the words hit me like cold rain before answering quietly, "I did not make anything dramatic." "You did when you laughed at me today in front of Grandpa." Arya scoffed, but for the first time I saw a flicker of worry in her eyes. We waited outside for nearly half an hour. The house was quiet except for the muffled ticking of the hallway clock. The same clock that had been there since my childhood, the one Grandpa would tap whenever time felt too slow. Now it felt like time had stopped completely. Finally, Grandpa came back out, his expression unreadable, but his eyes sharper than I had ever seen. His gaze locked on my father first, then on my mother, and finally on Arya. He said, "Sit, all of you." They obeyed instantly, like kids caught stealing candy. Grandpa stayed standing, towering over them with a calmness that felt far more dangerous than any yelling.
He said, "I made a few calls. I asked my lawyer to pull records on the SUV transfer. I know exactly what happened."
My father's face drained of color, my mother's fingers tangled together in her lap as if she could squeeze the truth away. Grandpa turned to me, "Chloe, you were right, every word." My breath caught, but he continued with increasing steel in his voice. "The SUV was transferred illegally, signed off under a fake urgency claim, and then used to cover a personal debt. The partner admitted it when I called him. I have the receipts, I have the messages, I have everything." Arya inhaled sharply. My father stuttered, "Dad, listen. It is complicated. We were under pressure. That business deal was falling apart. I had no choice." Grandpa leaned forward and said slowly, "You had no right. Not to her, not to the gift I gave her, and not to her future." My mother tried to speak, but Grandpa raised his hand again, stopping her in place. He turned to her with a deep sadness and said, "I trusted you to protect her, yet you let this happen. You let her walk everywhere on cold mornings, take buses in the rain while you pretended the car was unavailable. Then you blamed her for being independent." I felt my throat tighten hearing him say it out loud. Grandpa then walked toward me, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder, saying, "Chloe, I am sorry you were treated like this. And you are not going to live under their control anymore." I looked at him confused and whispered, "What do you mean?" He took a breath before announcing clearly and firmly, "You are moving in with me today, not tomorrow, not next week, today, and everything that was taken from you, I will restore." My parents both jumped from their seats, protesting, Mom saying, "She is our daughter, you cannot just take her." Grandpa replied without a hint of hesitation, "I am not taking her, I am giving her a life you refused to give her. You had your chance and you blew it." Arya slammed her hands on the table, shouting, "This is ridiculous." Grandpa shot her a look so sharp she went silent instantly. He said, "You three owe Chloe more than an apology. You owe her respect, and you owe her honesty, something she has not had in this house for years." My father tried one last time, saying, "Dad, do not let emotions ruin the family." Grandpa shook his head, saying, "Emotions are the only reason this family still has a chance, because Chloe still cared enough to stay quiet until today, but now I am done watching her suffer. I am done watching you use her kindness as a weakness." My heart pounded so hard I felt dizzy. Grandpa turned back to me gently, saying, "Pack your things, you are coming home with me." I nodded, unable to stop tears from rising, but they were not sad tears, they were the tears of finally being seen as I walked to my room to gather my belongings. I heard Grandpa tell them in a voice that echoed through the walls, "I will handle the legal consequences of what you did, but I am done covering your mistakes. Chloe is not your scapegoat, and she never will be again." With every word he spoke, I felt my spine straighten. I felt strength flood into me, strength I did not know I had for the first time in years. I was not the quiet girl who endured everything. I was someone worth fighting for, and Grandpa was proving it with every breath. The house that once felt like a cage now felt like it was losing its grip on me, and I knew leaving with Grandpa would change everything forever. I walked out of my room with the small suitcase that held everything I owned. My parents stood in the hallway looking pale and speechless as Grandpa waited by the front door like a shield between me and every wound I had ever carried. He took the suitcase from my hand and said gently, "You do not lift anything today. You have carried enough," my mother whispered. "Chloe, please do not leave like this," but her voice held. "Fear not, love." My father tried to force a smile, saying, "We can talk tomorrow." Grandpa answered for me, "There is nothing left to talk about, not tonight, not after what you did." Arya stood behind them, arms folded, but her eyes were wet. Even she silently understood the line had been crossed for good. When we stepped outside, the cold air hit my face, but it felt cleaner, freer. Grandpa opened the car door for me, a simple gesture, but one that warmed something deep in my chest. As we drove away, I looked back at the house that had shaped so much of my pain. It grew smaller and smaller until it disappeared behind the trees. And with it, the version of me who kept shrinking to make space for everyone else. Grandpa rested his hand over mine and said, "Chloe, your future starts now, not in their house, not in their shadow, but with your own choices." I nodded, tears sliding silently, but for the first time they were tears of release, not hurt. That night in Grandpa's warm, bright home, he showed me a new key, my key to my own room, my own space, my own life. And when he said, "Chloe, you will never be taken advantage of again, not while I am alive," I believed him because he had proven every word with action, not excuses. Later, in the quiet of my new room, I opened my journal and wrote a single sentence: "I choose myself from this day on." It felt like drawing the first line of a new world, one that finally belonged to me. The pain of betrayal was still there, but it no longer controlled me. I had walked out of the darkness and into someone's unwavering love, and for the first time in a long time, I knew I was safe. I knew I mattered. And I knew everything ahead of me would be built on truth, respect, and real family.